According to Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, in 2010, excessive drinking was responsible for taking the lives of more than 4,300 underage people. Seeing how mostly everyone in this room is under the drinking age, this should be a very serious problem for all of you. Being an adult underage limit, I've seen and been affected by many people drinking under the age limit and putting themselves in harm's way. Underage drinking is a very dangerous issue that we are faced with every day. Today, Derek and I are going to talk about how underage drinking can affect the adolescent brain and the behavior that comes along with it, and also the consequences that minors face when they decide to use alcohol. When you think about like the effects that alcohol has on you, you usually think like alcohol poisoning or liver damage, but the real like prominent problem is the effect that it has on the brain and the behavior. I'm going to swing it over to Derek to talk a little bit more about that.
Now, the brain isn't fully developed until you're about the age of 25. And according to the Teenage Brain Under Construction, written in 2016, states that the adolescent brain experiences rapid growth of nerve cells along with increased numbers of connections between the nerves. And what that means is that when you get older, your brain develops more, and you get grow new nerves and make new connections to things, which that's why it makes it easier for you to learn new things and understand new things at the age you are right now. Several studies, alcohol also affects all parts of the brain and brain functions. What alcohol attacks more is your memory, speech, judgment, and motor control. According to Livestrong.com, in 2015, DePlacido wrote that even though alcohol affects different parts of the brain, most of the focus is directed on your cerebellum, and the cerebellum controls your muscle activity and motor control. So that's why when you see someone who's been drinking, it might be hard for them to walk in a straight line, or they can't talk clearly and they slur their words. Several studies report that alcohol use during adolescence can also affect your educational attainment. It showed that a lot of students are not finishing school and dropping out at an early rate. So when a student goes through the week of learning and studying at school and doing homework, and then they go on a weekend of drinking and binge drinking, then they're killing their brain and those nerves that make connections. So they get memory loss. And so that's why it's hard for them to retain information, and they do worse on their homework, their tests, fail class, and drop out of school earlier. And drinking at a young age greatly increases the risk of developing alcohol problems later in life. The more you drink, the more at risk you are of being suicidal, having depression, and having memory loss. Now, not only does alcohol affect your brain and behavior, but it can also get you in a lot of trouble with the law. And Charlie will explain more on that.
Okay, so I'm sure you all know someone who has gotten in trouble with the law because of underage drinking. It's pretty serious and it can be kind of scary. I'm going to explain to you guys some of the consequences that come along with it. These come to you from Illinois.gov, last updated in 2016. So your first offense, you're going to take your driver's license, usually for at least 30 days. Your second offense is going to be about a year. And anything after that is going to be license revocation permanently. You're going to face fines. You're going to be looking at taking some alcohol education programs and some community service. But it gets real serious when you use alcohol and you get behind the wheel. These stats will come from NOLO.com, last update in 2016. The use it and lose it law is the one that they usually refer to. So if your BAC is above a 0.00, so if you had any alcohol and you get behind the wheel and you're under the age of 21, you're going to be in trouble. So your first offense is going to be a 3-month suspension, 6 if you refuse to take the alcohol test. Your second offense is going to be a 1-year suspension, and 2 if you refuse to take the test. But it gets way worse when it comes to aggravated DUI. So aggravated DUI is when there's a fatality or a serious injury in it. And so if there's one fatality, you're going to face up to 14 years. And anything more than one fatality, you're going to face up to 28 years in prison. And your license will get suspended, usually for life. As you can see, there are a lot of problems that come with alcohol use, but there's also solutions. Our solution is to raise more awareness in order to show the severity of this problem. Step 1, kids need to know what they're getting themselves into when they're using alcohol and the consequences they're going to face and all that stuff. And also parents and adults should know what their kids are getting into so that they can parent and guide them down the best road possible.
Underage drinking is a very serious issue that we are all faced with. So, as you go through college, I challenge you to not drink, to not let your friends drink, and to inform your community about all the problems that can and most likely will happen if you do decide to drink. Today, me and Charlie explain to you, one, how alcohol can affect the adolescent's brain and your behavior, and two, about the consequences minors are faced with if they do decide to drink. Like we said before, 4,300 people die each year from underage drinking. You do not want to be a part of that number.